The purpose of this video is to walk you through Excel assignment number 1. The purpose of this assignment is cost volume profit analysis, or also referred to as break-even analysis. So Joe is a student at OU. He's decided to start a business. He's decided to open a brat stand outside the football stadium on football Saturdays. He expects to sell brats for $4 each. Below are a list of his expected costs. His variable costs for the brat, if you don't know, it's simply a sausage, the bun, the mustard, ketchup, sauerkraut, and a wrapper. So the total variable cost per unit is $2.44. He has some fixed costs, which include worker wages, just $7.50 an hour, 2 workers for 3 hours each. So the total worker wages would be $7.50 times 2 times 3. Running the space and the permit will cost $160. Gas for the grill is $100, and ice, he needs 15 bags at $3.89 each. So what we need to do in part 1 is to first figure out what are the total fixed costs for each football Saturday. From there you can figure out the contribution margin per unit, which is going to be your selling price per unit minus your variable cost per unit. Your contribution margin percentage is your contribution margin per unit divided by your selling price of $4 each. The break-even point in units, you take the fixed cost that you figured out in part 1 and divide it by your contribution margin per unit. Your break-even point in sales dollars, you're going to figure out, you take your fixed cost from part 1 and divide it by your contribution margin percentage, the contribution margin ratio approach. In part 6 and 7, break it even may be nice, but it'd be nice to actually earn a profit. So you're going to see what would unit sales need to be to earn a $200 profit. So you take your fixed cost plus your profit divided by your contribution margin per unit. And what would sales dollars be to earn a $200 profit? Now you take your fixed cost plus the profit divided by your contribution margin percentage. In parts 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, what I'm asking you here to do is to figure out the relationship of how the contribution margin per unit approach and all the different components and different aspects of the formulas work together. So if you increase the selling price per unit or decrease it, what's the impact on the break-even point? So if you sell for a little bit less than you were, you're making a little bit less on each one. If you're making a little bit less on each one, then of course you have to sell more to break even. So the break-even point would increase when the selling price per unit decreases. Same thing, what happens if selling price increases? What happens if variable costs increase or variable costs decrease? What happens if fixed costs increase or decrease? All of this deals with one product. So what if you sell multiple products? That's what part 2 of the problem does. So Joe's contemplating selling more than just brats. In fact, he thinks he should also sell hamburgers and bottled water. He believes he'll sell 110 brats, 85 hamburgers, and 205 bottles of water. That is the product mix. And one thing you have to note when you do multiple product break-even problems like this one is the product mix is expected to stay constant. So the percentage of each item will remain the same, even if the total units change. So he expects to sell hamburgers at $4.50 each and bottles of water for $2 each. Those are the selling prices. Below are the costs associated with each of these items. So for hamburgers, the selling price is $4.50. The total variable cost is $2.59. For bottled water, the selling price is $2, and the variable cost per unit is 53 cents. So what you need to do in part 2 is first prepare a contribution margin income statement for each item sold, that is brats and hamburgers and bottled water. Once you've calculated that contribution margin for each item sold and for the company as a whole, so you're going to add those all together, and you'll see on the template it's actually set up for you how to do this. You're going to calculate the weighted average contribution margin per unit, and I certainly recommend looking at the Accounting 102 website. There is a PowerPoint presentation on doing doing these multiple product break-even problems and calculating the weighted average contribution margin per unit the easy way. At the break-even point, you'll figure out how many units of all products will be sold. Then at the break-even point, how many units of brats, how many units of hamburgers, and how many bottles of water will be sold. Don't forget about your rules. The rules will be enforced without prejudice but they will be enforced 100%. So you need to make sure that you name your Excel file, not name the Excel file itself, your last name, first name, and Excel 1. The other rules, you have to use the template provided on the Accounting 102 website for this quarter. To receive credit, you have to make sure you save your file as an XLS or XLSX file. It's really only relevant for those of you using Apple or Macintosh computers because it defaults to saving as a different format. The reason why it has to be saved as XLS or XLSX is so that your instructor can actually read it. You're responsible as a student to make sure your instructor can read your file. If it cannot be read, your grade will be a 0. So you need to make sure from your instructor that they can actually read your assignment. You must sign the Academic Honesty Pledge or you'll receive an automatic 0. You must use formulas and links wherever possible. If you simply type in your solution rather than using the formulas, you will receive a 0. You must name your file, again, last name, first name, Excel 1. If you do not name your Excel file this way, you will receive a 0. Your instructor will inform you how to electronically send your assignments. Some would like it emailed, some would prefer to use the digital Dropbox, some would prefer a different method. So you have to make sure to follow your instructor's instructions. Don't think just because one instructor does it one way that everyone does it that way. Each instructor has their own instructions, so it is your responsibility to follow those. If you do not, you will get a 0. To receive credit, your instructor must receive your assignment no later than 11 p.m. on the date it's due. That's not when you send it, that's when your instructor receives it. So if they don't receive it by 11 p.m., even if it's 11:01, it's late, regardless of when you sent it. The assignment must be completed individually. Working together constitutes academic dishonesty and will result in a failing grade for the quarter.